Hello, good morning, good evening, good afternoon, everybody on planet Earth, wherever you are. Hope you're keeping warm. It's getting really chilly here now. This video, I had this planned all day long to talk about a Russian fable. And the gods have been conspiring against me all day long. It's been one thing after another. It's actually been quite an exciting day. Lots of phone calls and emails and all sorts of stuff going on in the background. Anyway, and then I came across a podcast where Omid Scobie was interviewed a couple of days ago. It's about 30 minutes long and it's actually really rather good. And I was fascinated to get an insight, a little bit more of an insight into Omid and where he's coming from. Because I always like to hear all sides of the story. And he's always come across to me in television interviews that are normally quite short, that he's quite haughty and stuck up. And he didn't come across that way in this particular podcast. It's called Common Sense. And I don't know who the interviewer is because I don't recall him introducing himself. And I looked in the description and what I could find is that there are two editors that work on that podcast called Torin Andrews and Mubarak Teiru. So he could have been one of those people, I don't know. But very good interviewer, actually. Very good. I was quite impressed with him. Although he's clearly not a full swinging monarchist, if a monarchist at all. He was a little bit sniffy, sort of did a little bit of mimicry of how he sees the powers that be at the palace. But I can't really criticise him for that because I do mimicry of Meghan. And it's a way that you can sort of express without putting it into words, how you're feeling and what you're thinking. And I really like the fact that he said, why is it that when anybody tries to sort of step outside the comfort zone and question something or look at something, they get pounced on? And I fully appreciate that. Very interesting guy, actually, but it was mostly Omid speaking. And although I don't agree with a lot of the things Omid said, he did come across very, very well on it, I have to say. But before getting into that, I would, and I hope Omid watches this. I think he probably will because I'm going to put his name either in the title or the tags. And I hope he does get to see it. And I've put a link to the pod here for the Common Sense, that particular podcast. I've actually subscribed to the guy because, as I say, I thought it was actually really nicely edited as well. And he's only got about 1,600 subscribers. And I'll bear with him, and he might do many other subjects, I don't know. But I just quite liked his personality, and he's nice and concise and clear. And the way he had it set up is like way more professional than any of my lives. I don't know what software he uses. Anyway, so the link's in the description, but I would ask Omid, there was a time when you tweeted about Yankee Wally and you called her a criminal. And you said she was on a fixated person's watch list by the British security services. That's not true at all, Omid, for a start. I have actually seen the emails between Wally and the police, and they've confirmed to her she's on nothing of the sort. She's never been on a fixated person's watch list. In fact, I think the police even said there's no such thing exists. And also, the police were in contact with her for her own protection from trolls and from people attacking her, people who emanate from Twitter. So I would ask you, Omid, to revisit the Yankee Wally story, as during that podcast it became apparent to me that you don't like the way royal commentators just sort of have a narrative and keep repeating and regurgitating the same thing. And I agree with you to a certain extent, no detriment to any of the royal commentators because I like them all. But they're very limited in what they're allowed to say, and that is why I got into the YouTube side of things with people like Taz, Murky and Wally, who examined and investigated the whole thing in so much more depth. And that I enjoy them much more than royal commentators that we get on the news, who are highly restricted. You yourself probably know how restrictive it is. So I do agree with you there. You made the point that do the royal family need the press anymore, and that the mainstay income for newspapers such as the Daily Mail seem to be the royal family. Well, of course, they're the royal family. They are not a private family. They are performing a function. They're a hereditary bloodline that's born into it, And on the whole, they do a very, very good job. And if you think the Daily Mail is savage, have you not seen social media, Omid? Come on. If we didn't have the press, that's all we'd be left with, social media. And we don't even know if half the people we're talking to or arguing with are human beings or bots or paid troll farms. So really, no, I would vote that the press play a very important role. And it is a symbiotic relationship between the press and the royal family. And that's how the royal family communicate with us. And that's how they sort of get their good works across and all the things. I'm getting WhatsApps now. I'm being conspired against today. And I've made a ton of notes about this. So, Omid, if you could look again back in your tweets, I think you'll remember that you did say those things about Yankee Wally. And I think you were part of the reason that she was taken down off YouTube. And now, looking back on it, when you look at some YouTube channels, and I'm not talking about the ones that we all generally work with, but there are some YouTube channels out there that are quite strong, a lot stronger than Wally ever was. Why was Wally taken down? And now you're on podcasts yourself, and the guy himself was saying that they set up Common Sense because they didn't really like the mainstream media. And also the guy sort of mentions he's looked at a few channels, I suppose, like mine, and Murky Taz, Trevor and Sue Smith and some of the others. And he felt that we're all saying the same thing. I don't know which particular YouTube channels he was referring to. He didn't actually specify. And you say, why do people blame Meghan? And Omid said, well, yes, racism is part of it. He said, she's a divorcee, she's older. That was quite interesting. I don't think she'll like you saying that, Omid, but I get what you mean. I don't believe it's racism. I can't speak for anyone else. I'm not an elected official. I can only speak for myself. We've had two really rather nasty people in our personal lives, in the real world, for 13 years now. And they behave in a very similar and manipulative manner. And I think, Omid, you just don't see what I see when I look at Meghan. And I would have to ask, why is it that Harry appeared so happy with his family and getting out and enjoying life, whether he's partying, pissing it up, or, he was just being a lad, and then he met Meghan. And look at his face now. Now, is that because Meghan has dragged him down? Or is it because he feels so down because he loves her and he feels she's getting attacked and bullied in the media? I don't know the answer to that question. But it does look to me, when I look at historical videos of Meghan before Harry, she equally seemed more happy-go-lucky than now. And if she really values privacy and all those things, she really married into the wrong family, because they are a very public family. It is a strange thing, I suppose, especially to people who don't live in monarchies. But if Meghan had, for example, stayed in the royal family for about 10 years, who knows? I may well have come to like her or even love her, because there have been times with other members of the royal family where I've downright hated them at certain points, and I've thought, oh, I don't like that, that's mean. And then the same family members I've come to love or appreciate or respect, or I can see it in a different perspective, because they're a family, they're all different generations, and we all live our lives, and as we're living, the royal family are living, and we're all sort of muddling along through life together. So if she'd given it half a chance, I honestly don't know why they left the royal family. I don't actually buy into the theory that she planned it all along. I'm not quite sure about that one. I think they might have been thrown out, or there was something going on there, but I don't know. Omid also makes the point, mustn't it be frustrating for Harry to want to tell his side of the story when so many other people have told his side of the story, and then by the time he does it, people are like, oh, I'm fed up of hearing about you. But I mean, well, I haven't read his book, haven't bought his book. Someone's sending, actually Absolutely Average is sending me a copy. I don't know if it will ever arrive, because he didn't want to read it, and then I'll probably send it on to someone else. What what else was it that he said? Interestingly, Omid said that they need to tone down the drama, Harry and Meghan, that they can't use drama as currency. That's very interesting, that's how he sees things now. I think Omid is on a journey of starting to try and figure things out for himself and question, are they popular? If not, why not? He did stick to his guns over the racism, although I disagree with him, and there's racism everywhere to a certain degree. But I think that the royal family are better and the institution are better now than they ever have been. And they're quite young people they have working in the palace, and people of all nationalities and race. So I'm not buying that, but I do admire the fact that Omid is sticking with that, and that he was like, oh, Harry now wants to call it unconscious bias. Omid was like, no, I think we all understood it was racism, that was the allegation, and I'm sticking to that. So I do take my hat off to Omid, and he made a little dig about misremembering things as well. So, little by little, he also came across as quite a personable person. You know, I could see myself sitting down and having a chat, a cup of tea with him, a lot more than I could say a year ago. I mean, a year ago I just thought, oh, he's so haughty, so hoity-toity. You know, I can't really. He's looking down his nose at all of us. That's how he used to come across to me. And what else was it? I think I've pretty much... Oh no, there's another page of notes. Yes, the press. Now, Omid criticises the press for putting a certain spin on things. Well, that's their point of view. That's their perspective. If someone famous says something and the press take it a certain way and run with it, you can't dictate to the press the way that they receive something or the way that they see the facts. And the Daily Mail, I think, is actually quite a useful one because it's got the great comments section. And you can go to best rated, worst rated, oldest and newest. Pollsters, they must love that. They go to a Daily Mail article. Sometimes the Daily Mail really put their foot in it and the commenters are against the Daily Mail. Other times, the Daily Mail do an article and the commenters love it. So the comments on the Daily Mail, I think, are a great barometer for anybody who works in PR, who wants to take the temperature of the public generally. And also, you don't have to have a Daily Mail account to give a thumbs up or a thumbs down to a comment. And I love the way they give the freedom of that, and they don't insist people have to have an account in order to do that. So you can sort of see generally whether people like what the person said or don't like what the person said. And I think that's great, and I think they're the only website that have that. He talked about how the Netflix documentary is very biased. Well, of course it would be. It's their story, isn't it? So they're going to tell it from their point of view. What I'm surprised at is inaccuracies or anything that's just not true being in it. That's no good at all. When Graham and I did the Traveller film years ago, we were criticised that we did it in a very biased manner in favour of the travelling community. And we did. We did, deliberately, and we never made a secret of it because I'd never seen any positive press about them and I felt they deserved a voice. So I'll put a link in the description to that video as well because that's really our flagship. That's something Graham and I are very proud of because we were, I'm quite ashamed to admit it, we were quite scared to approach them in the first place and we were hesitant. And I'm glad that we forced through that. I mean, when we first approached them, all the men came out and they surrounded us. They were frightened and they were defensive, and we had to explain what we were trying to do, and it took half the day to talk to all the different heads of the family for them to believe us and trust us. And I said to them, please trust me, we are not here to make things worse for you. We're here to try and put your point of view across. And oddly enough, it was the kids mostly who really wanted to talk to us and get their opinions out there. So that was done in a very biased way. I suppose Meghan and Harry, yes, of course, are going to do a Netflix documentary in a biased way in their own favour, but it's the dishonesty or twisting facts or trying to make people believe things that are just not right. And talking about other members of the royal family when that really is their private life. That really is an invasion of their privacy. You and the guy, I wish I knew whether he was Andrew or, what was the other guy's name? Mubarak. Torin or Mubarak. I really wish I knew, because then I could refer to him other than the interviewer. The interviewer said, how can Meghan be pulling Harry's strings? He's a fully grown man. Come on. How can a woman wrap a man around her little finger? Oh boy, you're young and naive if you can't see how that can happen. I'm not saying it does happen, but if you believe that's not possible to happen, you need to wake up, because you might find yourself in a similar situation, and a lot of men can find themselves in abusive relationships, even though they're big guys. You really need to look up domestic abuse for men, because it's something that people don't really recognise or talk about or look at. And Omid says the Netflix show showed how much Harry is in the driving seat. I disagree, Omid. That Netflix documentary made it clearer than ever to me who's in the driving seat of that relationship. She is definitely in the driving seat, in my opinion. So anyway, and now I feel I should explain what on earth my thumbnail picture is all about. No, that is not me saying that Omid Scobie is a devil. It's actually got nothing to do with Omid. Because originally, before seeing the podcast today, I was going to do a video about an old Russian fable. And there is a depiction of it called The Storyteller here on YouTube with the wonderful late John, oh God, I can't think of his name. That's terrible. He was an absolute hero. Oh, it escapes me. Boy, you'll see who he is. He's so famous. He was in V for Vendetta, and I just... his name's completely gone. Anyway, he played the storyteller. And it's the story of a soldier who'd been at war. And when he returned from war, he met someone who gave him a magic sack. And that any time he commanded any living thing or anything to get in the sack, they would have no choice but to get in the sack. Now, I don't want to spoil the story because it's a lovely story. And the video's linked in the description. It's only about 30 minutes long. It's wonderfully told. John Hurt, that was his name, John Hurt. And basically the guy demanded that death get in the sack because he wanted to avoid his loved ones from dying. And he figured if he got death in the sack, tied it up and hung it from the tallest tree in the thickest forest, then nobody and nothing could die, which is exactly what happened. And after many years, people were in pain and infirm, and they were just getting older and older and older and really begging to die. So he decided he'd go and release death. But when he went to release death and he said, I'm sorry I tied you up in the sack all these years, now you can take me, because death had come for him. Death wouldn't take him. Death fled. He was afraid. And he never came back to him. So the guy himself could not die. Everyone else could, but not him. And that's really the situation that Harry and Meghan are now finding themselves in. They are like the soldier who caught death in a sack. Because who's going to work with them now? They have, she's attacked her father, her half-sister. They have both attacked the royal family. Whether they see it that way or not, that's how it's come across. And what Hollywood A-lister, what Hollywood studio would risk even talking to them? Because people who have a lot to lose, like Hollywood studios, Hollywood A-listers, politicians, they have fought and slaved for their position in society. Are they going to risk getting involved with someone who maybe the rumours are true and there are a couple of prima donnas to work with? They might get uppity, they might start screaming racism, sexism, he touched me inappropriately, they said this to me, they said that to me. Who's going to want to be on the receiving end of cancel culture? She's the woman who sued the Daily Mail. She's the woman who took down Piers Morgan. She's the woman who took down Jeremy Clarkson. She's vengeful. She can bring down anybody. Perhaps even the British monarchy, which, by the way, I don't believe she can bring down. But that's the image They have therefore become the soldier who put death in a sack, haven't they? They've made themselves the most unappealing proposition from a professional point of view, I think, ever. Could you imagine someone like Angelina Jolie, who is inherently private, inviting them round so they could say, oh, she's got chocolate magic mushrooms in a bowl? Or if they're willing to, he's willing to put in a book that he peed his pants, he's liable to release any, is anyone even going to feel relaxed enough to go for a beer with them, to hang out with them? They've really put themselves in an incredibly difficult position. And of course, the royal family now must be absolutely paranoid about having either of them around, for fear of tape recorders, for fear that they're going to repeat things, or for fear that everyone in the room was silent, but they're then going to go out and give an interview to Oprah Winfrey and say, oh, they said this and they did that and they did the other. And the royal family are like, no one actually said a word that moment when they were in the room. So they've frightened everybody off with their own behaviour. And the reason for the thumbnail is that is one of the characters in The Storyteller, which the link is in the description below. Some of you have said you can't see descriptions. What you have to do is go to the description and there's a little word that says more. Click on that and then you'll see my disclaimer about fair use and fair dealings. And I use the thumbnail and fair use and fair dealings. And then there's another one where you click more, and that drops down, or I might put the links above the disclaimer this time, so it's easier for some of you. And also thank you very much all of you for the comments about my hair. Just quickly before, I am not sponsored by these people, but I'm so thrilled to have found it. This guy here, you can see it's like it's like a toaster, one of those old-fashioned toasters, and you just put, it's a hot comb. 5 minutes, my hair is tangle free. There you go. And it's called, as a few of you have asked, this will probably be back to front, but it's called a Tymo ring. Dyson have a similar product called I suppose it's called a Dyson ring, but here on Amazon in Spain it's about 700 or 800 euros. Yikes, I'm not paying that. This was about 35 euros, I think this one was. Not very expensive at all. And it's the best hair thingy I've ever found. And I don't mind having curly hair, it's just it clots and knots and tangles and gets in a terrible state, and this thing just irons it out. It's literally like having an iron. So anyway, oh, what a long video. Managed to get it out without someone coming in the room saying they want to watch TV or running water or vacuuming, or they always choose to start doing that as soon as I start recording. Hope you're all having a fabulous day. Oh, and I think Trevor's on a live tonight with Samantha Markle, and Wally is going to be on a live with Jason Good. Organise it for today. It will be next Thursday, I think. So go and have a look for Jason Goodman. I'll have to look up his channel and see if I can put that in the link as well. So I've got quite a lot of links to put in there. Have a fabulous day, everybody, and thank you very much for listening.